All right, tonight we turn the page onto week 4 by looking one more time at the defensive problems the Cowboys had versus the Cardinals and diving into the comments made by Dan Quinn that should ease the minds of Cowboys fans. Here we go. What is up, everybody, and welcome into A to Z Sports Dallas Prime Time. I am your host, Mauricio Rodriguez, streaming with you live every Sunday through Thursday night at 8 p.m. Central here on Dallas On Demand Sports Talk Network. With a lot more content coming your way, make sure that you check out atozsports.com/Dallas. And as always, do me a favor and hit the like button as you join the show. Remember that every thumbs up puts this show in front of more and more Cowboys fans. It is Tuesday. It is Tuesday night here on A to Z Sports and in the world. And man, it is going to be a long show because we're going to look at some replay of what happened with the Cowboys versus the Cardinals run defense. Let me tell you, I finished watching the all 22 tape. I finally did. Yesterday it was all about the offense. Tonight it's going to be mostly about the defense. But man, that was a painful all 22 watch to get through. And I did come away with several takeaways. One of them was evident since Sunday, but today, getting through that defensive film, it was confirmation. The Cowboys absolutely got out coached. It felt like the Cardinals knew what was going to happen. It felt like they had the beaters for everything that the Cowboys showed them. And it was pretty impressive. I want to say this. We talk a lot about things that happen on the field from the perspective of our own team. And that's natural. It's logical. And every NFL fan base will always do that. But this was objectively a statement from the Jonathan Gannon coaching staff. So I'm going to give them that credit, and I'm going to give Joshua Dobbs some credit as well because he made some top-tier plays in that game. That deep throw early in the first half, I'm not talking about the 69-yarder. I'm talking about one in the first half that we're going to look at today. That was some good quarterbacking from Joshua Dobbs, and the design is pretty cool too. So I'm just going to give it to them before we get started. And I'm going to say this. This is a team that held a lead versus the Commanders in the first week, and it held a lead over the Giants in the second week. Second half leads these are. And versus the Cowboys, they didn't hold up against the other two foes. They did hold up against Dallas. So they are, I mean, this shift is saying here in the chat, and I agree, they're missing the playoffs. They're likely still in the mix to be the number 1 overall pick, which I'm sure no one will bring up in April when no one will bring up this week 3 game versus the Cardinals when they are picking first in the NFL draft. No, but all kidding aside, I don't think they are going to be a winning team or anything like that. I just didn't expect anything out of the Jonathan Gannon coaching staff. And right now I'm like, okay, I see them. First year offensive coordinator, first year defensive coordinator, first year head coach. They're on something. And first time is what I wanted to say, actually, because they are completely new in that sense. They've never been in their positions before their current gig. So shout out to them. Let's talk about some silver linings here moving forward. Yesterday, we talked about some with the offense. There's still some things to be excited about. I know that we posted the video on socials from Sky talking about how McCarthy is willing to really accept that he was overreacting to the backup offensive lineman situation. And he talked about how maybe he was wrong with how high the Cardinals were playing the coverage. Or not wrong in that per se, but wrong in how the Cowboys responded to it by running the football in early downs. So maybe we see some changes right away. Maybe we see the Cowboys approach things differently. Dan Quinn's comments, though, made me a little bit excited for several reasons. I cannot be too excited about the defense. So they did make me calm down a little bit because he was asked about physicality. Did Dan Quinn see physicality from the Cowboys defense in week 3? Because I think that's a good question to ask. On Sunday, we were talking about how the Cowboys were punched in the mouth because it felt like that. I even compared it to the Broncos game in 2021 when they were absolutely out physicaled at the line of scrimmage. The receivers out physical the Cowboys defensive backs, all of that in 2021 versus the Broncos. You look at this game, and I thought that might have been the case when watching the live copy, right? When watching on the TV. You watch the old 22, and it's not really about that. And Dan Quinn said it himself. It's more about missed assignments. So here is a quote from Dan Quinn after Monday's press conference. He said, "I have seen physicality. I thought over the last 2 weeks, I really felt that, the physicality." So I don't want to say no, one game is who we are. I didn't say that in the first game either. And then he added, when talking about, the explosives, one on a quarterback read play, that didn't have anything to do with our physicality. It's just not quite handling our job responsibility. My answer is not on the physicality, but at the end of the day, 6 missed tackles are too many for us. And it is true. Listen, I would much rather have this disaster of a game, which is the only way to put it. I would much rather have it be because players missed on their assignments, and I'm not justifying it at all because it's not what you want. And this loss is very significant because when you're fighting for your division with the Philadelphia Eagles and every game matters, even if it's played in September, it is going to play a major role in how this whole season shakes out because you were not supposed to lose to the Cardinals, period. So I'm not justifying any of that. But I will say I would much rather lose this way than I would because my players were getting pushed around at the line of scrimmage, because I find that much easier to replicate by NFL teams. People talk a big game about, oh, the blueprint to beat this team as soon as one bad team beats a good team. That's one of the cliches in the NFL. If the Chiefs lose, they're going to be talking about the blueprint to beat the Chiefs, and the same for all of these good teams, especially those who are not as established as the Chiefs, actually. Maybe that wasn't a great example. But yeah, the blueprint thing always comes up. I think if a team actually comes out and out physicals you, then that becomes a little bit of a reality. But I don't think, again, that was the case at all for the Cowboys. And I don't think that the old 22 shows any of that. It started with the read option from Joshua Dobbs, and we look at the old 22 right now here. It's just, everyone knows how a read option works. It's based off of Micah Parsons in this case. He bites hard, and Joshua Dobbs earns 44 yards in the play. And that really just sets the tone for the Cardinals right away. So you got to respect it in that sense. But that was not it. That was not it. As we saw a little bit of everything for Dallas. And by the way, Micah, pretty fast. Looks like he's going to get to the QB, but also Micah to the running back, but Donovan Wilson definitely struggling there in the second level as well. This design from the Cardinals, man, 2 play fakes on the backfield, 21 personnel, and they're going to have what seems like a janky concept, sort of a go/post route on the backside, and then they get a crosser, perfect beater versus cover 3, which is what the Cowboys are playing in this scenario. I absolutely love the design from the Cardinals. Let's call it like it is. Then Joshua Dobbs makes a play with Micah Parsons in his face. And look at how they even change Dobbs' launch point. So there you go. 2 fakes, and then he rolls to the right, and he's going to throw the football all the way to the other side, again with Micah on his face. Some things I didn't like, Micah playing one technique on 1st and 10. I've talked a lot about how Dan Quinn moves Micah around and how it works essentially, but I don't want to see Micah playing one technique versus any football team on 1st down, which is an obvious running situation, especially versus this team. Then this is the big run from Rondale Moore, and the Cowboys are in in a dime personnel, 6 defensive backs. And Rondale Moore, keep in mind, wide receiver. So the Cowboys maybe feel like they're matching up the right way versus the Cardinals, but they're getting him in the backfield. They're going to give him the football. So it's basically 6 defensive backs against Moore. And I know Marquise Bell is a quote unquote linebacker, but we know he's a safety. He's playing linebacker, but he's a safety. So the Cowboys just do not have the bodies. Plus, Marquise Bell kind of misses on his assignment. And we'll talk about that from the other angle right here. But this is yet another first half explosive for the Cardinals, which was a first half story, by the way, allowing these big plays to Arizona. There was a 69-yard throw in the second half, but other than that, not much to speak of. But Marquise Bell just not in the right place, not in the right moment. The Cardinals get another big play. Then the Cardinals get creative again. 21 personnel. They're going to use some motion in there. And boom. Big play from James Conner again. I think in this one, you want to look at Dayron Bland and you want to look at Marquise Bell. There you go with the run fits. But look at how it changes, like where Marquise Bell is at. He's lined up right over the center, not at the line of scrimmage, but behind that in the second level. And the motion kind of moves him a little bit. And then Rondale Moore goes away, but he already moved, and it just grabs him off, catches him off guard. And Dayron Bland is also a little bit lost there. So another big gain for Arizona. So some weird personnel grouping things that were going on in this game, missed assignments. It's not that the Cowboys are getting punched in the mouth at the line of scrimmage and being out physical again. It's just scheme stuff. Because when you see the Cowboys adjust near the end of the first half and in the second half, and you see Jonathan Hankins and Massey Smith in there and more regular kind of groupings, you start to see the Cowboys really put a stop to them. There you see Hankins is in there, Oza is in there making the plays with more usual personnel groupings. Massey and Hankins in there occupying space and doing things the right way. It was a weird game, but hey, I would much rather have this football game be decided because of missed assignments than I would have the Cowboys being pushed around. So that is a silver lining for me. Not that only, I will also say that Trevon Diggs plays this game and it doesn't matter. Trevon Diggs plays this game, the Cowboys still lose. And I know that doesn't sound encouraging, but my point is Cowboys did not lose this game because they didn't have Trevon. Dayron Bland was called for a defensive pass interference, which is unideal. He gave up some catches. I mean, not saying that he played a shutout game or anything like that, but he was not the reason why the Cowboys lost. Dayron Bland actually played a pretty decent game, in my opinion. Dan Quinn named 3 players that played good games, and Dayron Bland was one of them. So I'm excited about that, knowing that it might not be a big issue. And yes, it's the Cardinals, so it's also a partial answer because we don't know where this whole thing goes from here. But I felt that the struggles were mostly at linebacker with missed assignments, where some questionable personnel grouping decisions like Micah playing one technique on 1st and 10. I love the wild designs that Dan Quinn puts together. I've talked about it so much here on the show, but I'm not a fan of that. In that situation, I don't want to see Micah get pushed around by a guard and a center because that's going to happen. That is going to happen if the other team is running the football at you so much. Now, Donovan Wilson, ladies and gentlemen, Donovan Wilson played a very bad game. Do we want to give him the benefit of the doubt because it was his first game back from a calf injury, missed pretty much all of training camp, all of the preseason. This was his regular season debut in 2023. So I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt, but it was a bad game for Donovan Wilson. He honestly looked very bad. I was watching the tape and man, he's missing on the assignments, not where he should be, trying to make a play or something and not being there for the backside cuts, all of that. So that was a concern. I actually wondered if people were with me on that, and I looked at his PFF grade, and it was like a 20-something run defense grade. So That was a concern. Now, Lauren Michael says, get Juan J. Thomas back out there. And I'm not sure that I would go that far because I know who Donovan Wilson is or has been. And I don't know that the calf injury is going to change that. But maybe it was some rust from Donovan Wilson. That's what I'm hoping for, at least. Hopefully, we see a better version of Donovan Wilson. He was not a liability in coverage, but he definitely struggled versus the run. Toxic Tom says, Mo, the 85 Bears, the 2000 Ravens, the 2014 Legion of Boom, and the 2023 Week 1 and 2 Cowboys defenses, greatest of all time. Although I find that funny, I will say, man, I don't know about the 85 Bears and the 2000 Ravens. Like, I don't know if they'll reach that kind of legendary status. But I do know one thing. I'm not giving up on the Cowboys defense like that because I've seen these sort of takes. You know, I've seen people concerned about Dan Quinn. I've seen people say that, hey, the Cowboys defense is not it. They're overrated because they played the Giants and the Jets. And I'm like, wait a second. Let's not get it twisted. This is not a 2-week thing. The Cowboys have been one of the best defenses in the NFL since Dan Quinn and Mike Parsons got here in 2021. And it matters because we're talking about a unit that's been pretty much the same. Heck, in the offseason, we were super excited because the one change was Anthony Brown, and you swapped him out for Stephon Gilmore. So we were excited about the continuity, and now we're going to act like it was a 2-week thing. I'm not buying that. I'm not buying any of that. And here's one of the reasons why I'm also kind of calming down about what we saw in week 3. We kind of pretend that the Cowboys sucked versus the run in 2022 and that they needed to bring in Mazi Smith to fix that. But I think that's not right. The Cowboys were actually top 5 in EPA per play versus the run. And some people might say that's just because they got tackles for loss and they forced fumbles, and that led to them being so good in EPA per play, which put some weight into takeaways and all of that. But in success rate, which measures whether you allowed a successful play or not, the Cowboys were also a top 5 run defense in the NFL last year. And I feel that's a misconception that we have about the Cowboys defense still. We pretend like they sucked versus the run last year. And maybe we're getting it confused. Maybe we're confusing the fact that the Cowboys were elite versus the pass. And if rivals wanted a shot at them, they needed to run on them. And yes, there were some rough games in that area. The Lions ran the football pretty well against them. They were not the only team to do it. So there were some rough games in that sense. The Cowboys were a top 5 defense versus the run in 2022. Mazi Smith was not supposed to come in here and take a bottom 12 unit in that area and turn it into a top 5 unit or anything like that. If anything, Mazi was supposed to come in here and allow the Cowboys to play with fewer light boxes and to maybe not have to invest 7-8 players in the box in order to stop the run, which is something that the Cowboys did need in 2022. That's what you brought in Mazi Smith for, not to fix a broken unit versus the run. So I want to put that in the table here because it's different to look at it as quote unquote confirmation that the Cowboys still suck versus the run, which was not the case in 2022 and probably is not the case in 2023, despite the disaster of a game that we saw in week 3. It's different to look at it one way, to say, oh, the Cowboys were actually good versus the run, top 5 in the NFL last year. This is kind of new, what we saw versus the Cardinals. So much so that I think that the rushing yards that the Cardinals had in the first half were like historic for the Cowboys franchise. And the EPA that the Cardinals were able to generate against the Cowboys in week 3 was the highest that we've seen since 2020. So basically since Mike Nolan. So you look at it from that point of view and you say, okay, this was indeed a rarity. And a lot of it was fantastic game planning and play design from the Cardinals. So I'm going to give them that credit too. Mitesh says, Mao, I thought that Masi was a run defender, and he is. Do not get me wrong, because I said you brought in Masi to not depend so much of heavy boxes to stop the run, which the Cowboys needed last year. But they were still a top 5 run defense. Masi was not supposed to take this from a bottom 12 unit to a top 5 unit. He was supposed to help out and boost the defense, and he might still do that. It's only week 3 of his career. But the Cowboys did not suck versus the run last year. And I think knowing that and starting from that point really changes how you look at this whole story. Katharina says, our defense is on fire. Leighton Van Der Esch is a beast as well. It was one game, Mo. We can't downgrade them over one game. We got this, is Katharina. And I'll say this, Leighton Van Der Esch, in my opinion, not a beast. I'm not going to go that far. But he's a solid linebacker that we all know he is. Like, he's not somebody that's going to cost you games, even if sometimes it's going to look as ugly as it did on Sunday. And Van Der Esch had some very rough reps, and Damon Clark did as well, and Marquise Bell did as well. He was a disaster a little bit on week 3. But he's a solid linebacker, average linebacker, knows defense pretty well. I think we can settle for average, honestly, and even that is fine. I don't know if he's the guy, as Mitesh says in the chat either, but he's a solid linebacker, solid meaning average, and I'm fine with that. Isidro says the top priority is offensive line, of course. Linebacker isn't far behind, in my opinion. And yeah, the thing with the offensive line is that we're going through the multi-injury thing with 3 players out in week 3. And linebackers is like, I don't know where to turn. I mean, even at full health, it's pretty bad. It's in terms of depth. Like, yes, you have Damon Clark and you have Leighton Van Der Esch, and then you have a safety playing linebacker. And Marquise Bell looked pretty good in the first couple of weeks, especially in week 1. But now we're kind of second guessing that whole thing. David McKnight says, let's hope our offensive line to get healthy soon. And yeah, that's definitely a big thing. Going into the New England Patriots game in week 4. Hopefully the Cowboys are at full strength there. Speaking of, let's move on a little bit here on the show. And although we're not going to fully dive into a preview versus the Patriots, let's just say that the Cowboys need to bounce back against a New England Patriots team that is not it, offensively speaking, but it's definitely a good defense. It all starts with Bill Belichick, who is obviously the master of defense in the NFL and in history, because he's somebody that knows X's and O's like nobody else on this earth, probably. He knows the history of the game. His dad wrote Football Scouting Method, so he kind of comes from an old school, and I don't got to give you a backstory on Bill Belichick, but I do want to say that, hey, the Patriots defense ranks 11th in EPA per play right now, but that's a little bit shady. That's a little bit tricky, deceitful, if you will. This team held the Miami Dolphins to 17 points in week 2. The same team that went ahead and dropped 70 on the Denver Broncos. The Patriots have a very legit rookie cornerback in Christian Gonzalez, who played damn well against Tyreek Hill. Pretty much had him at zeros. Honestly, he was playing Tyreek Hill at a very high level. He played on Garrett Wilson too, shadowed him a little bit. I'm not sure if he will be shadowing CeeDee Lamb. I'm very intrigued about that matchup, if so, because we've seen Gonzalez for the Patriots travel with the top receiver from those 2 teams that I mentioned, the Dolphins and the Jets, but not that much into the slot. So he has maybe like 6 to 8 snaps in the slot per week, based on what I remember, and he has over 100 reps on the outside. So I don't know if he's going to shadow CeeDee into the inside, but one thing we do know is Bill Belichick won't shy away from it if that is the way he thinks the Cowboys can be stopped. So Cowboys offense needs to bounce back, especially after a 1-of-5 performance in the red zone, and they got to do it against Bill freaking Belichick. Not going to be easy, even if it's a home game. And Brian Schottenheimer talked a little bit about it on Monday, and I was intrigued about his comments because he talked about Will Greer and Ezekiel Elliott, quote unquote, knowing where the bones are buried. Thought that was a little bit interesting because he might be onto something. He says, we know that Will knows where a lot of the bones are buried. And we know that Zeke does as well. I'm sure Greer is definitely being interrogated, says Schottenheimer. And then Bill O'Brien was asked about it, the offensive coordinator for the Patriots. And he says, interrogating, sure, he's a good guy. I've known Schotty for a long time. I think that's the way it is every week in this league, every year in this league. There's going to be guys that come into your organization of teams that you're about to play, and it goes both ways. It's always going to happen, so I don't think that really at the end of the day, you've got to study the film. Everybody's got to be on the same page with what we're doing. This is what Bill O'Brien said. Penn State legend, as Toxic Tom says. And honestly, a pretty good coach offensively. I know that he got a bad rep with what happened at Houston, and I don't blame people for that. But I think that Bill O'Brien, the GM, was a problem. I'm not sure Bill O'Brien, the coach, was a problem with the Texans. So he might do some good stuff for the Patriots after they had Matt Patricia coaching the offense last year. So that's going to be fun to watch. But O'Brien kind of tried to play it cool, and I agree with some of that. But also, Will Greer is a QB. It's different. It's not just any player entering the organization. It's the quarterback. The Cowboys are reportedly, according to Todd Arker, changing up the hand signals entering week 4 based on that. Obviously, Zeke played a lot of years with the Cowboys, so he knows the offense pretty well. A lot of chatter on social media today, by the way, about the Cowboys missing Zeke. That's something that I don't agree with. Cowboys have been fine running the football in short yardage situations. I just don't think the Cowboys really miss Zeke, and that's not a knock on Zeke, who has had these moments with the Patriots. Good for him. But it's going to be a storyline entering the game, right? Does Will Greer and Ezekiel Elliott's knowledge actually help out the Patriots on this game? I think it's going to be a very minor X factor into the whole game. It's going to be more decided by Christian Gonzalez versus CeeDee Lamb and Bill Belichick versus Mike McCarthy, which is going to be a fun battle to watch as well. It's going to be a tough game, and I cannot wait to dive into it tomorrow night. But it's already taking a life of its own on social media with that storyline forming a little bit. Oh, man, the chat is just letting Bill O'Brien have it right now. Jordan Smith says, how many snaps Massey Smith has played? Man, I don't know if Pro Football Reference is going to be updated in that sense, but it's been pretty even between Massey and Hankins. They were actually at the same snap count after week 2. So I wouldn't be surprised if Hankins has his light edge right now. Let's see really quickly. Let's get you that answer. Actually, a lot of difference this last game. 40 snaps for Massey Smith, which is 22%. And Jonathan Hankins with a 63 snap count, 35%. That's where they are at. Will Zeke score a touchdown, says Gregory. Give me the yes on that. Give me the yes on that. I'm willing to take that prop bet just for fun. Just for fun. Can you imagine Zeke scoring on the Cowboys after so much drama? You know that the Patriots are going to give him a chance, I think. I think you do know that. I'm not worried at all. They will bounce back against the Patriots, says Ines. The sportsbooks think so. They're 7-point favorites versus the Cowboys. And I don't know what many people will say. That doesn't matter. They were 11-point favorites versus the Cardinals. And you guys are right. But still, it kind of matters. It kind of gives you an idea of sportsbook overreacts less than fans do. So I do think it's a little bit important. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, we'll wait on the preview stuff, though. We'll talk about that tomorrow night and on Thursday night with the prediction and betting the Cowboys. We are 2-1 for the season, just like Dallas, too. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, the return of the One Cool Thing. We have not done a One Cool Thing in about 2 to 3 weeks. So now we are back. For those of you who are new to the show, It's a random feel good moment of the show. And especially in a week like this, we might need it. It's a segment where we just share one cool thing of our professional lives, personal lives, sports related, non sports related, whatever you want it to be. What is your one cool thing of the week? Let me know in the chat. Looking forward to seeing your answers in a week where Cowboys Nation really needs a little bit of a mood boost, right? It's been a rough 72 hours for Cowboys Nation after that loss to the Cardinals. Katharina opens us up on Facebook saying, one cool thing, it is my birthday on Sunday. Man, we need that one to be a happy birthday gift from the Cowboys. We need that one to be a W right there for Katharina. Toxic Tom says, Mo, I watched my Orioles walk off a win against the Rays in extra innings. Thankfully, my wife bailed me out of jail because I went nuts, says Toxic Tom. There you go. There you go. That's also a one cool thing. David says, I got tickets for Cowboys against the Chargers. Oh, that's a Monday night game. Love that, David. Hope that you enjoy it. Joey Bella says, one cool thing, being a dad and treating myself with some ES22. This is Joey Bella. There you go. Keith says, Dak Trash can throw, can't walk. I don't think that's a one cool thing of the week, kid. I don't think that's a one cool thing of the week. I also don't think Dak is trash. But anyways, my one cool thing of the week, ladies and gentlemen, it is fight week. Canelo fights this Saturday 30th, Saturday night. I'm excited. Love Canelo. Charlo, not that much of an exciting fight. Excuse me, I get too excited. Cannot talk. Charlo has not fought in a while, but I'm still excited. I want to see that. Look at Mo's child hands throwing a jab. Says Toxic. I don't mind. We're excited about the fight. Toxic says, Mo, if you like Skyrim, play Starfield. Believe me, Toxic, I am trying. I hate that it's been a VC season so far, so I've got like 8 hours of playing time in it. Bought it, pre-ordered it, love Bethesda games. I will forgive them for all the wrong that they've done because I really like Bethesda games. I loved Skyrim, loved Oblivion, loved Morrowind, Fallout games, all of that. Hoping that next week, my one cool thing is that I've been able to play Starfield because I've struggled to get the hours in. I really have, but we'll see. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it for me tonight on the show. Do me a favor and hit the like button for me. Share the show, and I'll see you tomorrow night. Peter Rizzo got tickets, Dallas versus Philly, November 5th. Another one cool thing of the week. See you tomorrow night. Cowboys versus Patriots preview is gonna start. Let's turn the page. Let's forget about week 3. And let's look forward to week 4. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you and